de déstabilisation.
An action to destabilize the country was planned.
Allait se faire par une série
This was to be carried out by a series of targeted assassinations of civil and military authorities,
par la neutralisation
starting with the neutralization of the comrade of Captain Ibrahim
de
Traoré,
l'État, président du Faso,
head of state, President of Burkina Faso,
soit par une
either shooting him at point-blank range or by an action to mine his home.
The speech you have just listened to is from Burkina Faso's defense minister, who has revealed explosive details about what can only be described as one of the most audacious and sinister assassination plots in recent West African history, a conspiracy so elaborate, so well-funded, and so deeply connected to external forces that it exposes the true face of neocolonialism in our time. Brothers and sisters, I need you to sit down for this one. I need you to pay attention because what I'm about to share with you is not just another news story. This is a chilling revelation that pulls back the curtain on the shadowy forces that continue to wage war against African sovereignty in the 21st century. According to Minister Sana's testimony, the conspirators had marked January 3rd, 2026 at precisely 11 p.m. as their 0 hour, the moment when they would unleash hell upon Burkina Faso. Can you imagine the cold calculation behind choosing that specific date and time? These weren't amateurs, my people. These were trained operatives, military personnel who had taken oaths to protect their nation, now turned traitors with blood on their minds. The primary target was clear and unambiguous: Captain Ibrahim Traoré himself. The plan was as ruthless as it was straightforward. Assassinate the head of state either at close range, with the assassin looking him in the eye as they pulled the trigger, or by planting explosives at his residence, blowing him and anyone nearby to pieces while they slept. But brothers and sisters, it gets worse. So much worse. This wasn't just about killing one man. The hit list extended to other high-ranking military officials and civilian leaders, the very people who have been instrumental in Burkina Faso's revolutionary transformation. They wanted to behead the entire leadership structure in one night of coordinated violence. Think about that level of evil. Think about the mindset required to plan the simultaneous murder of multiple patriots who have dedicated their lives to their country's liberation. Now here's where this plot reveals its true nature, as an act of external aggression disguised as an internal coup. Minister Sana detailed that after the assassinations, the conspirators planned to neutralize Burkina Faso's drone launch base. Why would conspirators planning a simple coup care about drone capabilities? I'll tell you why, brothers and sisters, because this was never just a coup. This was the opening salvo of a full-scale invasion. Those drones represent Burkina Faso's ability to defend its territory, to monitor terrorist movements, to project power across its sovereign airspace. By taking out that capability, these traitors were essentially disarming the nation in preparation for what Minister Sana called the arrival of external forces for a ground operation. External forces, ground operation. Let those words echo in your mind. This was a planned military invasion of a sovereign African nation, and it was being coordinated by Africans themselves, modern-day colonizers in black skin, selling out their brothers and sisters for foreign money and promises of power. Just imagine for a moment, my brothers and sisters across this continent and in the diaspora, the level of desperation, the depth of hatred, the extent of corruption required to participate in such a scheme. How willing these people were to betray everything, their oaths, their people, their ancestors, just to remove one man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a young military officer who dared to say enough to foreign exploitation, a leader who chose Africa over personal enrichment, a president who prioritized sovereignty over subservience. What does it tell you that they're willing to kill him, to destroy an entire nation's leadership, to invite foreign armies onto African soil, all to stop his vision? It tells you that what he represents is the single greatest threat to the neo-colonial order. It tells you that true African independence, real sovereignty, actual control over our own resources and destiny, these things terrify the puppet masters so much that they'll burn down entire countries to prevent them. Minister Sana, exercising discretion to protect ongoing investigations, revealed the name of only one principal conspirator. But what a name it is. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba. Yes, That Damiba, the same man who positioned himself as a patriot when he overthrew President Marc Christian Caboret in January 2022, the same man who claimed he would restore security and stability to Burkina Faso, the same man who, after just 8 months of failed leadership and broken promises, was himself ousted by Captain Traoré in September 2022, when it became clear he was either incompetent or unwilling to genuinely fight for Burkina Faso's interests. According to Minister Sana's explosive testimony, Damiba was the architect, the mastermind, the chief planner of this entire diabolical operation. His responsibilities included planning the operations, every detail of the assassinations, the military strikes, the coordination with external forces, securing and mobilizing funds, acting as the financial coordinator for this multi-million franc conspiracy, recruiting civilians and military personnel, identifying, vetting and enlisting traitors from within Burkina Faso's own institutions. And where is this brave revolutionary now? Where is this man who once wore the uniform and claimed to serve his nation? He's reportedly hiding in Togo, cowering under the protection of those who share his vision, or more accurately, his complete lack of vision for Africa's future. He's being sheltered by forces that prefer compliant, controllable African leaders over strong, independent ones. Brothers and sisters, this is the oldest story in the book of African tragedy. The external powers don't need to invade us anymore with their own soldiers. They've learned that it's far more efficient to find Africans willing to do their dirty work for them. And when those African collaborators fail or are exposed, they provide safe haven in neighbouring countries, protecting them from justice so they can be used again another day. Now, let's talk about something that never lies: money. As we say in Africa, follow the money and you'll find the truth. Minister Sana revealed that the funding for this elaborate plot came from abroad, and he specifically named Côte d'Ivoire as a primary source. According to official intelligence, a final transfer of approximately 70 million CFA francs, that's roughly 125,000 US dollars, was traced and recorded. Let me break this down for you because this is absolutely crucial. 70 million CFA francs didn't just materialize out of thin air. That money was transferred through banking systems across international borders from Côte d'Ivoire into the hands of conspirators in Burkina Faso. This means there are paper trails, electronic records, financial institutions involved in facilitating the funding of an assassination plot against a sitting African head of state. But here's the question we must ask. Who in Côte d'Ivoire authorized or facilitated these transfers? Were these private individuals acting alone? Or were there institutional elements involved? And more importantly, where did that money originate before it reached Côte d'Ivoire? Because $125,000 is just what was traced to one source. How much more money flowed through other channels that intelligence services haven't yet uncovered or aren't ready to reveal? This is concrete, indisputable evidence of external interference in Burkina Faso's internal affairs. This is proof, not speculation, not conspiracy theory, but documented proof that there are forces both within Africa and beyond our continent who cannot stomach the idea of a truly independent Burkina Faso. They cannot accept a leader who prioritizes his people over their profits, who chooses sovereignty over subservience, who dares to challenge the established order that has kept Africa in chains, even after the formal end of colonialism. Minister Sana assured the nation that investigations and arrests are continuing as security forces work to identify all participants in this massive conspiracy. He emphasized that all suspects will be brought before the courts to face justice in accordance with Burkina Faso's laws. This is important, brothers and sisters, because it demonstrates that even in the face of such an existential threat, the government is committed to due process and the rule of law. But the minister also issued a stark and necessary warning to the population. Do not be naively drawn into such nefarious schemes. This warning is absolutely vital because the enemies of African progress don't only work through violence. They work through manipulation, through propaganda, through social media campaigns, through appealing to ethnic divisions, through exploiting economic grievances, through turning brother against brother and sister against sister. There are people reading this right now who may think, maybe Traoré is too radical, or Perhaps we should be more accommodating to international interests, or couldn't we find a middle ground? To you, I say, wake up. This assassination plot proves there is no middle ground with neo-colonialism. You either accept complete subservience or you face elimination. Those are the only two options the imperialists are offering.
Before any further remarks, allow me to pay a well-deserved tribute to all the defense and security forces, to all the volunteers dedicated to the defense of our homeland, to all these resilient and patriotic populations who tirelessly fight day and night to ensure that Burkina Faso remains standing. Through their sheer resilience, a path they led us to their unwavering determination, and through their profound self-sacrifice, Burkina Faso will always stand firm and strong despite all the immense challenges and adversities. I extend my wishes for a swift recovery to all those injured, and for those who have tragically left us in this war of honor, I reaffirm the government's steadfast commitment to never ever forget them, and may the free soil of Burkina Faso rest gently upon them. This is also an important occasion for me to congratulate and commend the truly invaluable work of our intelligence services. Thanks to their professionalism, Burkina Faso has thwarted for the umpteenth time attempts at destabilization. Congratulations to them. In essence, on January 3rd, 2026 at 2300 hours, a plan to destabilize the country was anticipated. This was to be accomplished through a series of targeted assassinations of both civil and military authorities, beginning with the neutralization of Comrade Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the head of state and president of Faso, either at point-blank range or by an operation designed to mine his residence. Following this action, there should be a decommissioning of the drone base and a ground military intervention by external forces. The actors involved, for reasons of confidentiality and also to avoid compromising the effectiveness of the investigations, we will only name the principal actor. This is former Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, the man in question. So, his key mission was to conceive and plan the actions, to seek out and mobilize the necessary funds, and to recruit both civilian populations and military personnel. The military's specific mission was to co-opt other military members and to establish action groups with very clearly defined objectives.
Let's zoom out and examine the broader context, because nothing happens in isolation on this continent. President Ibrahim Traoré has been at the helm of Burkina Faso for the past 3 years, and in that relatively short time, he has fundamentally transformed not just his nation's trajectory, but the entire discourse around African sovereignty in the Sahel region and beyond. He has guided Burkina Faso onto a path of sovereignty and endogenous development, meaning development that comes from within, controlled by Burkinabe people for Burkinabe interests, not dictated by international financial institutions or former colonial powers. He has done this within an explicitly Pan-Africanist vision, understanding that Burkina Faso's liberation is inseparable from the liberation of all African peoples. This is a leader who enjoys broad popular support not just within Burkina Faso's borders, but throughout Africa and across the global African diaspora. From Dakar to Johannesburg, from Accra to Nairobi, from Harlem to London, the name Ibrahim Traoré has become synonymous with a new generation of African leadership that refuses to bow, refuses to compromise, refuses to accept anything less than full dignity and sovereignty for African peoples. And therein lies the threat he represents to the established order. When Thomas Sankara was assassinated in 1987, it was because he demonstrated that a small, landlocked African country could chart its own course, could reject International Monetary Fund debt, could feed its own people, could stand tall in the community of nations without begging for aid or permission. His assassination was meant to send a message. This path is forbidden. For nearly 4 decades, that message was internalized. African leaders learned to stay within acceptable boundaries, to make the right compromises, to prioritize the interests of international capital over their own populations. But then came a new generation, and Captain Ibrahim Traoré is perhaps the most prominent representative of this generation that refuses to accept the boundaries their predecessors observed. Minister Sana's revelation mentioned that this is not the first attempted coup against President Traoré's government. Brothers and sisters, let me emphasize this. There have been multiple attempted coups, all thwarted thanks to the vigilance and professionalism of Burkina Faso's intelligence services. Think about what this means. This is a government under constant siege, facing repeated attempts at destabilization, living with the knowledge that there are forces committed to their destruction. This is the price of sovereignty in contemporary Africa. This is what happens when you dare to challenge the neo-colonial order. You don't just face diplomatic pressure or economic sanctions. You face assassination attempts, coup plots, destabilization campaigns, terrorism that mysteriously intensifies whenever you assert independence. Look at the pattern across the Sahel. Every leader who has genuinely prioritized sovereignty over subservience has faced similar pressures. Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta has survived multiple coup attempts. Niger's General Abdourahmane Chiani came to power specifically to prevent the nation from continuing on a path of subservience. These are not coincidences. This is a coordinated effort to crush any genuine movement toward African sovereignty. In his final statement, Minister Sana promised something absolutely crucial: transparency. He announced that videos of some of the accomplices confessing their crimes would be shared with the public. This is how you build trust with your people, brothers and sisters. This is how you demonstrate that you have nothing to hide and everything to defend. In an era of disinformation, where social media can be weaponized to spread lies and confusion, where foreign intelligence agencies can create fake news to destabilize governments, showing the evidence is essential. Let the people see the faces of those who would have murdered their president. Let them hear in the traitor's own words what was planned. Let the truth be undeniable and unavoidable. This transparency also serves another purpose. It's a warning to others who might be contemplating similar actions. It says clearly, we will find you, we will expose you, you will face justice, and your betrayal will be documented for history to remember. My brothers and sisters across this great continent and in the diaspora, this assassination plot against Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not just a Burkinabe issue. This is an African issue. This is our issue. Because what's being targeted is not just one man or one government, it's the very idea that Africans can govern themselves, control their own resources, and determine their own futures without permission from former colonial masters or international financial institutions. If they succeed in Burkina Faso, they will try the same in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, in any country where leaders dare to prioritize sovereignty. This is why we must stand in solidarity with Burkina Faso. This is why we must amplify their truth. This is why we must expose these conspiracies and the foreign forces behind them. The struggle for African sovereignty is far from over. The forces of neo-colonialism are alive, well-funded, and deeply entrenched. They will stop at nothing, including assassination and destabilization, to maintain their grip on our continent and our resources. But this revelation is also a testament to the resilience of those who refuse to bow, who refuse to sell out, who refuse to accept anything less than true freedom for Africa and her children. Captain Ibrahim Traoré lives. The conspiracy has been exposed. The vigilance of Burkina Faso's security services has once again protected the revolution. But we cannot become complacent. We must remain vigilant. We must continue to support genuine Pan-African leadership wherever it emerges. And we must never forget that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Africa will be free, not by permission, but by our determination, not by begging, but by building, not by compromise, but by courage, and leaders like Ibrahim Traoré, who embody that courage, must be protected, supported, and celebrated by all who believe in Africa's destiny. The revolution continues, the struggle intensifies, and we must be ready.